Living by a school, really is not.
Ready. My name is Darius Schonbar. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee for the City of Albany Industrial Development Agency. Calling this meeting to order. We have Elizabeth Staubach, John Maxwell, Anthony Gaddy, and myself here today. And the first order of business, since the meeting minutes have been previously distributed, I call for a motion to waive the reading and accept them as presented. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second. All right, all's in favor? Aye. Next order of business, a report from the chief financial officer, but we have none for this week. So we'll move directly into unfinished business, which is 324 State Street, a project that I, as the tax collector for the city of Albany, have a soft spot for because it's putting a formerly tax exempt property back on the tax rolls. So take it away, Andrew.
Thank you. So this project, obviously, we just held a public hearing for. No public questions and comments were received. We also discussed this project at length at last month's finance committee meeting, both in open session and in executive session as well. I will run through a summary of the project one more time. The project involves the redevelopment of the existing 40,000 square foot commercial building into approximately 29 marketplace apartments. The revenue gains from taxing jurisdictions is the chair noted based on the fact that it's currently off the roll, it's approximately $1.36 million. And the interesting thing about this project is it was analyzed in a bifurcated manner. The first being, should the applicant not be eligible for nor utilize historic tax credits? And the second lane would be if historic tax credits are awarded and utilized. We took two roads of analysis simply because the historic tax credits obviously affect the finances of this project. So taxing jurisdictions for the historic tax credits is approximately $1.17 million. The current value is estimated to increase from $700,000 to approximately $1.7 million, and that increase is just over $1 million. This project is an estimated total investment of $6.5 million. We will do a detailed run through of the community benefits momentarily, but first we will jump into the employment impact analysis. As we do with all projects reflecting real property tax payments, the Capital Distribution Planning Commission will help us run a plan analysis of both the temporary construction impact and the permanent operations impact of the jobs on site going forward. Looking at both the direct, all three direct, indirect, and induced effects of those set jobs. For construction, the estimated impact over the course of that construction period is $6.2 million in total, and the permanent operations is an estimated $108,000 in total. The project is projected to create 2 permanent full-time jobs and approximately 20 full-time construction jobs. And the last thing to note as part of the summary is that as we have been doing with all projects requesting real property tax abatements, while we are in the process of perfecting the framework, we did bring on board a third party to independently analyze the financial assumptions of the project and the reasonableness of the assistance requested. Both of those were found to be sound, the financial assumptions and the reasonableness. An executive summary of that memo was made part of board materials. You also, as confidential materials, have the full report in front of you as well.
Thank you.
Just wanted to run through the scoring.
Yep.
Real quick. As we've noted previously, we understand that in this interim period while the framework is being refreshed, we could see, and as we do see here, projects coming through that are not scoring the typical 10 points that had previously allowed the project to seek a framework style pilot. We'll run through these points here. one at a time. Under the revitalization header, identified priority category, the project receives 1 point for being tax exempt. The project also receives 1 point for historic preservation, being that the building is at least 50 years old and are located within a historic district, that district being Center Square. Project receives 1 point for a conversion to residential. And the project receives 1 point for the estimated 20 full-time construction jobs being created. Project receives 1 point for the total investment value of 6.5 million. And under community commitment, 1 point each for regional labor, committing to utilize 90% of regional labor during construction. And City of Albany labor, committing to utilize 15% or more of City of Albany residents during construction, with a total of 7 points. Further questions, especially those involved in the finances of the project. We can talk about those in the executive session.
I don't have any further questions myself. I know we went through it at length last meeting, which unfortunately was not here, but the only thing I would point out is the executive summaries on the next page of the materials, if anybody wants to look at that both here and if anybody is looking at the materials online. I don't think we have anything else on this. Again, we had the public hearing, received no public comment on this project. Does anybody else have any further questions or comments? Or I guess I'll just say it again. I'm happy to see a property going back in the tax rolls. So I can have a motion for a positive recommendation for this project to be moved to the full board.
Make a motion.
Spurt, second. All those in favor? Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next project. Back to unfinished business is 144 State Street. This is the Renaissance Hotel. This is a project that was a little bit different for us. It is for some refurbishment to the property and something that I think has been really teased out and thought through here. And again, much discussion was had, I think, at the last meeting, but we'll have some more right now from Andrew.
Thank you. So again, we just held a public hearing for this project. No public comments or questions were received. We did in person when we visited. We also discussed this that night at last month's finance meeting, both in open session, and we also discussed the financial dynamics of the project in the executive session. I'm going to run through a bit of a longer summary for this one, and stop me if there's any questions. Well, 2014, the IDA approved financial assistance in the form of sales, mortgage reporting, and real property impact abatements for the historic redevelopment of the long vacant former hotel at 144 State Street. 180,000 square foot Renaissance by Marriott Hotel features 203 rooms, a full service restaurant, banquet, and event space. The hotel facilities, parking garage connect to the Albany Capital Center and Times Union Center, and enclosed climate control to the walkway. The project beneficiaries are proposing a $3.5 million new investment into the project and requesting an amendment to the existing pilot agreement, providing additional assistance to move forward with the project and maintain hotel operations consistent with the hotel brand, given the financial hardships inflicted upon the project's performance during the COVID-19 pandemic, combined with related costs of materials and project-specific labor cost escalations. So again, an estimated new investment of $3.5 million. Looking at the anticipated benefits inclusive of the new request and also looking back to the original assistance which commenced in approximately 2023. Looking at an overall net benefit had the project never have been completed of $6.5 million. We'll also run through the benefits analysis in more detail. As we did the previous project, we did request CDRPC run an input analysis looking at the construction impact on site during the estimated time frame of the renovations to be complete, in total direct, indirect, and use of that total of approximately $5.1 million. Those jobs that we're referencing in the construction total approximately 18 full-time jobs. As part of this, this will also allow the hotel to continue operations and retain the 91 existing full-time jobs currently on site. Similar to the previous project we discussed, we also brought on a third party to do a parallel analysis of the project applicants' financial assumptions and the reasonableness of the requested assistance, both of which would be sound. The result of the financial assumptions being sound and the requested assistance being used. Quickly running through the scoring, just of note, again, these projects are being analyzed technically outside the framework, which is being refreshed. However, the project would score 1 point for being located downtown, 1 point for being located in downtown Did, 1 point for being located within a neighborhood plan being impact downtown. The identified priority of the project consists of historic preservation, which is 1 point. An identified growth area, the project is in the hospitality. The project received 3 cumulative points for retaining 91 full-time jobs and 1 point for the estimated 18 constructed jobs. Management commitment to the project received 1 point for the $2.5 million investment, which should be a total of 10.
Anything further?
For something further, I'd like to
Does anybody want to go into executive session to discuss the financials? And okay, I don't see a need to myself. I do want to thank the Renaissance and point out that it's nice to have a project that is fully unionized with a unionized labor force and to have that labor piece. So that certainly is something I look on favorably on this project. Does anybody have any further questions? Again, we've gone through this in detail, I think the last meeting. Any other issues? It is a little bit odd for us, not odd, but it's rare, I think, for us to evaluate a project that is actually a current project. But again, doing the independent financial analysis, it's shown clearly that that the financial assistance is warranted and that it'll help to continue Renaissance's presence, the upper end of State Street, for years to come.
There is, I can pick up on
Sure.
that point, just to really underscore that the reason that this is able to come before the agency, and I know we talked about this around this table, the committee has really, particularly during executive sessions, the conversations around the financial analysis, been very clear on the fact that this is a new project, it is a new investment, which is why it is able to come before the agency for additional assistance and amendment to the existing pilot. So that is one significant gatekeeping factor based on the financial need that was very clearly demonstrated by the financial analysis, both that we did here as staff, but also through a third-party independent consultant reviewing the project performance. There was clear financial need for the request that is in front of us. There was also clear demonstrable impacts of the global pandemic that were ongoing on the project. They weren't one-time impacts, so that we were able to see throughout the financial statements that we reviewed altogether. And then Darius, as you mentioned, the strategic value of maintaining the Renaissance as the Renaissance. That corner of State and Eagle has been critical. So, you know, that after that first gatekeeping factor that is a new project, there were multiple additional factors that allowed the board to really consider this for the assistance of being reflected.
Perfect. Well, if there's no more questions or comments, last chance. I'd like a motion for a positive recommendation for passage of this project to the full board. So move, Tony.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, terrific. See you next week. All right. All right. Next order of business, we're on to new business, 40 Steuben Street. Correct. Okay, all right. 40 Steuben Street. This is an assignment of a pilot. So take it away.
Thank you. So the request at hand is the assignment of the current pilot in place. So taking a step back, this project, where we Steuben, located at one of the North Pearl and Steuben, located directly across the cobblestone there from Steve Pancake. Closed with this agency on sales, mortgage, recording tax, and real property tax abatements in 2014. It's a $1.9 million project. The building was previously vacant for about 48,000 square feet, give or take. And developer at the time we came in and we developed the property into 29 market rate apartments and approximately 2,600 square feet of retail space. The pilot at the time was approximately 20 years in duration, so we're in year 8 or 9, depending on where the Seton County schools have this. So, for the record, we have both the prospective purchaser here with us today, and Darrell, and the seller here, Michael Wallace. So, really open it up to them if they have anything to say, and also just maybe to ask some potential questions. Then we introduction and the question.
Anything?
No, I won't add very much. I appreciate the board considering this request. My name is Joe Fernandez on behalf of Redburn Development. We are hopefully going to continue our presence in downtown Albany. This will be a great addition. We do have quite a presence on that North Pearl corridor. Hopefully we'll just seamlessly integrate this building into our portfolio. And just one point of clarification, we are actually buying the FC that owns the property. So I believe, and legal can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I don't think anything changes on your end. We are buying the entity that currently the benefits are assigned to. Happy to understand how that works. And happy to answer any questions.
And maybe just that you can clarify that point that they're buying the LLC that's still an assignment.
Right, it is a transfer of the effective ownership.
Right.
Not by one entity to another, but ownership interest of the current entity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Correct.
Any questions? Any? Oh, Mark, you're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to check.
If you do have any additional questions,
Yeah.
we can certainly bring those back to both the buyer and the seller.
Okay. So unlike, unfortunately, the materials say that we're going to have a discussion over positive, negative recommendations, but I think we're going to hold that for financial review. Is that correct? Okay. So we'll have the opportunity to ask other questions now in the future. But thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
And yeah, look forward to future work downtown. All right. So next order of business is Midtown Albany, 102 Hackett Boulevard. This is the former Niscova building, I believe, on Hackett Boulevard, for transition from an office to a small apartment building.
Correct.
All right.
This is the initial project introduction. You can see a picture of the building on the screen. The project involves the redevelopment, which is a 28,000 square foot office building, which is now vacant, to approximately 25 market apartments. The project applicant, Tony Manfredi, is here with us today. He can speak in more detail to what he's looking to do with this property.
Thanks, Andrew. I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here, and we're requesting IDA support to convert this existing vacant office building to 25 market rate apartments with a mixture of about 2,500 square feet of tenant amenities, which will include a fitness center, tenant storage, and some shared co-work space. We had some space in the building that wasn't suitable to be converted to apartments, so we felt that incorporating some shared workspace would be a modern amenity for the tenants. At this point, this was the former office building for Niscova. New York State Correction Officers and Police Benevolent Association. They've had it on the market for several years and have been unable to find a suitor. And we sort of were able to partner on this, and I have been able to get site plan approval, so that is in place. And we're excited to move forward with the project if we can get the necessary support. So thank you.
Anything further? from staff, or-
Next month with a detailed.
Great.
I have been asking, are you going to sign?
Actually, planning asked that the sign
Do you
be
take it down?
be changed. Yeah, they'll give the position location,
Okay.
but they don't want a digital sign first.
I drove by the sign every day for 10 years, so I'm just curious.
Do you want the sign?
Yeah.
We may have to take her. Terrific. All right. So next order of business is our draft budget for 2024. Sarah, do you want? Thank you. And this too is a little bit unusual for next year because, as Sarah will go through.
All right, so thank you, Emma, for pulling this up. We're gonna try to get it a little larger. And we'll scroll around. So there was the, and maybe I'll steal the mouse from here, but I don't know if you can play Diana during that. All right, so I want to start with the headline because that's where everybody's eyes go, and we'll just acknowledge right off the top here that we are for the first time in at least a considerable amount of time projecting a deficit for 2024 for the city of Albany IDA. We are also projecting that we will end each 2023 in a deficit as well, which was unanticipated when we approved the 2023 budget back in October of last year. So I'll walk you through in both cases how we've gotten there, and we don't have to take action on the budget today, particularly because we are projecting a deficit. We do like to bring this early to the group. We typically bring the budget early to the IDA. Anyway, we have provided this draft to Darius as the treasurer of the city of Albany as required by our bylaws. So that has been posted. This is very much a draft budget. It can change all the way through until when we post it at the end of October. We will be seeking approval of the final budget at our October meeting around the IDA board table. So we'll see this here today. We'll see this back at finance in October, and then we'll be looking for approval at the end of October. So to start, let's go through 2023, if that's all right. We can start up here as you look at. That little guy off. So I'm not going to highlight anything, but you can see what the little hand is. On the fees, we are projecting, as we had talked about during quarterlies, we had projected that we were slightly off of pace for the first 2 quarters of the year. We're going to be significantly off pace for the final 2 quarters of the year with projects that have failed to materialize or will not close by the end of December. And so we are projecting a variance of $613,000 to the negative for fee income for 2023. Really, that's the factor here. As you roll down through all of the other revenue lines and expense lines, things are holding pretty steady. Expenses, we've done better on a handful, slightly. The only other item that I'd bring your attention to that you can see that looks like a significant change is the strategic activities line. That $100,000 was the budget for the framework update for 2023. As you're all familiar with, we have paused that project in anticipation of the revaluation that's coming out through the assessor's office for the end of 23 and 24, so that we can really understand how that will impact the pilot structures. So we've had the consultant bill just over $24,000 to date on that contract. Because we are in a contract, you'll see as we get to 2024, we're carrying that $75,000 over into next year because we are contracted and obligated to continue with that project. We need to do that anyway, the board strategically, so we'll see that reflected there. So we are going to be a little over $75,000 under that expense line. That will bring us out currently to a projected deficit of just over $500,000 for 2023. We had budgeted a surplus of just over $100,000 of the IDA, again underscoring purely driven by the difference in projected fee income. That difference is driven by a number of things. How we typically arrive at the projected fees for the budget. We do one of two things, or we do both and compare. One, we look at projects that are in the pipeline that we can identify that we expect to come through the agency in a given year and close. And typically we've been around that 1.2 figure. The other way we do it is to look at a rolling average of what our fees are. There's nothing average about the last 3 years globally, let alone here at the IDA. And so we really have been looking at pipeline. The bottom did fall out in 2023, a number of projects that were unable to move forward. And so that's the difference in the offset. So I'm going to be based on that theme. I'm going to move right into 2024, and we can have a discussion related to all this and walk you through where we are for 24. As you can see, going down the revenue line, we have a much more conservative projection of $761,000 in fee income. That number was arrived at by anticipating 5 projects that we believe may be in the pipeline. We'll talk about those a little bit later when Andy and I thought to really go through what we think is out there. Taking in pragmatism and prudence, we really don't think that we can project beyond that figure. We do have some concern that we may not hit that, but we think we're being optimistic that that we may be able to get there. So that's the $761,000 in fee revenue. That 761 also includes the idea that we would be bringing in half of the professional service fees for project review, as the board had approved this past year. So there's a small amount of that that's administrative fees that go directly to applicants as they're coming through. The increase in the 9% MyTech fee line is one additional project coming online for 24 that will be responsible for paying that $10,000 fee that had not been online in 2023. Holding steady through the CRC agreement and in terms of projection of interest, same as well. Moving through the operating expenses, we have not proposed a change to the economic development and community development support line. We have not proposed an increase nor a decrease. I think we can have a discussion about the merits of that. That is the funding that the IDA provides through a professional service agreement to capitalize Albany Corporation to stimulate economic development and investment throughout the city that we report on our activity throughout the year. We then move down to the Arbor Hill Community Center sublease. I do want to highlight that while you see that number coming down, that is based on we did receive confirmation within the past recently from the city of Albany that the amended lease has been executed by all 3 parties. And so we were able to move from the previous lease structure that had a floating lease payment that was tied to usage of the facility to a more set figure that is the $40,000 number that has built-in escalators year over year. So we're projecting $40,000 to be the expense in that line versus the 75. Legal expenses holding steady there. Same going down. Finally going down the line through the $24,000 projected as professional service fees. So again, those are offset. Many of the lines within that are offset by half for the applicants coming through. Next, coming down, we have the management contract. That is the IDA's really three-party contract between the IDA, CRC, and Capitalized Albany Corporation for management services. As you'll recall, we had updated that recently to account for significant additional operational expenses at Capitalized Albany Corporation to manage the IDA and CRC, also bringing that fee up in line with what, more in line with what was actually being spent by Capitalized Albany. There was still a delta there that was to the IDA and CRC benefit at that line. We're not proposing for the board, and we never, as staff, we never come forward and present an increase proposal there. We are not currently recommending an increase to that line, given the bottom line for the projected budget for next year. That does not necessarily mean that our expenses are not going to increase with cost of living, inflation, raises and other expenses. It is simply staff not recommending an increase there based on a deficit projection. That also does mean that in the future, we may be in a position again where we're looking at a more significant differential between what the IDA is paying versus what it's actually costing to run the agency. But as of right now, we're not recommending an increase in that line, given project activity projections. Coming down, we have the agency council contract that gets reviewed annually at $42,000 to the city of Albany. We have $9,000 projected for audits based on feedback from Tilbecker, assuming that we move forward with that contract for services. And then we've got standard items like depreciation expense and insurance. The miscellaneous line is mostly made up of trainings, the EDC, Industrial Development Agency training that the board is free to attend, as well as staff, and then board meeting expenses as well fall into that line. So that brings us to total operating expenses of just over $1 million. Before other expenses that has at a projected deficit of just over $200,000 over the roughly $800,000 of revenue that is projected to be brought in next year. I've already walked through the strategic activity line. That $75,760 is the holdover for the WZHA contract for updating the project evaluation and systems framework. And that brings us to the projected deficit total of $278,759 for 2024.
Yay.
I will point you to the bottom of the draft budget that has been provided. Again, you can see the estimated project closings that we have for 2023. As you know, you can see some of the projects that we have just moved the full board today. So that is assuming that the board takes positive action next week, and assuming that those projects do actually close by the end of the year. We think that that is likely, assuming the positive recommendation today, as well as the fact that we've got, believe it or not, we still have more than 3 months left to 2023, although it's going to go by in a flash, and we are hopeful that those will continue to move forward and close. For the 2024 estimated closings, again, that is 5 projects. I do want to underscore that each of those projects are contingent on things like either planning approvals or low-income housing tax credit approvals, or financing being in line with where they anticipated it to be. So basing the estimated fee revenue on specific project pipeline, that comes with its own challenges. If the projects don't move forward, you can see where those estimated closings come in there. We do, as an agency, try to keep 3 years of operating cushion in our accounts, assuming the deficit projected here at the close of 2024. It's estimated that we would have approximately 3.8 years of operating expenses still being able to be covered within our accounts as an agency. So we are, that is a hard policy of the IDA. It's something that we have consistently believed to be prudent for cases like this, so that we are able to continue our obligations to monitor and enforce all of the existing contracts and projects that we have in place. So that is the overview of our draft budget for 2024. Can be anything else that I failed to cover?
I think this is the first deficit budget we presented in my 10 years here.
I think so.
And I think I would point out, especially in that last page there, that after years of this body involved in approving assistance to apartment construction, where we've added hundreds every year of apartments, new apartment construction. This year we have like approximately 80 or so units altogether. I think that's about what we have up there on the board. Yeah. The striking number for me is we go down to the bottom. The expected activity for next year, we have no projects in the pipeline right now. 0. And for a grand total, I think there are 2 new affordable housing units out of those 80 that might not otherwise have been constructed. But I dare say it's at the cost of any other new apartment units coming through this body. And I can't say that there's many other new housing units being built in the city. I don't believe Albany Housing is building any new units. I mean, they're refurbishing some and bringing some back online. There is a house going up around the corner from me on fresh land. So I guess that's one more unit of housing that's being built in the city of Albany. But it's no stretch to say that virtually every new unit of housing that has been built in the city of Albany in the last 10 years has come through this via apartment construction. There's very little new home construction in the city. Thankfully, there's some refurbishments of old buildings, which is good. We want to see. Up there on the board, we have Clinton Avenue Apartments, which is a prime example of all the refurbishment of old housing stock. But they are affordable housing units, thank goodness. But they are affordable housing. And if we're moving to a place where the only thing that gets built in the city of Albany is subsidizing affordable housing, I don't think that's what any municipality wants, to concentrate only on affordable housing units and not have market rate units. And it's certainly not what our common council has voiced to us as what they want. Yet what I see happening here is exactly the opposite of what they and any healthy city should want. So I just wanted to point that out for anyone who might be listening now or in the future. And I don't know if anybody else has any other comments or questions or thoughts or anything. Thank you for listening. All right. So I guess I need a motion for a positive recommendation for budget. I would say, I also want to just reiterate that this is a deficit budget because we're not having projects being built in the city. And there will come a point, if we don't have new projects being built in the city, you know, we thankfully up on the board, we do have, you know, a couple of industrial projects, which is good. But that is not what has been driving economic development in the city. Even though through the Industrial Development Agency, the industrial projects have not been particularly what's driving development in the city. It's been apartment and new apartment construction. It's added people to as residents of the city. We are up over 100,000 in residents now in the city for the first time in about 30 or 40 years, in no small part because of those additional apartments. Our job here through the IDA, but also through Capitalize Albany, is to encourage economic development in the city of Albany in a meaningful, sustainable, and as affordable way as we can. And if new projects are not being built, that's going to impact our ability to do it. And this is the first example of us being forced to run a deficit budget that will impact our ability to assist economic development. So with that, I would ask for a motion.
Well, I will say, we certainly can, to the full board today. It isn't, because we do have time
Yep.
for before October, it's not necessary, to have that, the budget moved. We could take another month to digest, but we can go back and forth. But that's entirely up to you. I just want to make sure it's clear that we're not in a time crunch. At
Yep.
this point.
I'm fine with, since we don't have a lot of other projects on our plate right now coming in the door, I'm happy to take a motion to move to the full board. If people want to, if people don't want to, that's also fine with me.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, second. All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right. On to other business, agency update.
I should not be fussed with the mouth, but that, thank you to grab that. Agency update, and I discussed it during the budget discussion, just to reiterate that we did get notified of the executed lease with the City of Albany School District for the community center. We also were made aware of, I believe, the finalization of the management agreement as well, which is something that the agency has been really pushing to ensure that we have that agreement back and forth between the City of Albany and us. It's not going to be me and Andy out there shoveling snow and cleaning windows. However good we are at that, you probably don't want us doing it. So we do have that in place as well, and we have become current for this year on payments on that amended lease, and so just getting board every day.
Great.
That's it.
Anything else for agency update? And compliance update, the last page of our materials is a review of the agency insurance policy.
I saved the most exciting thing for you, so.
So as you see in front of you, the very last page is just a very high-end summary of the policies and amounts of those policies that are in place, mainly director and officers insurance, women practices liability, and cyber liability. So if there are questions on the actual policies themselves, or the level of coverage, please let us know and we can work with our carrier. There's manual or answering questions.
I do not.
This is an annual exercise. There's no action from the community.
Terrific. Any other business? Then do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting? So move.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, on to next.
Should be.